Mm. So, good morning. This is St. Patty's Day, and this day always fills me with really beautiful memories of my great grandmother, Irene O'Brien. She was full blooded Irish, and we called her Big Mom, but that got changed to Big So, I'm going to tell you some stories about Big this morning. Excuse me, sorry. Yes, I feel her presence. Growing up with Big I heard so many stories of Ireland because she came here from Ireland in her teens. And so she moved to Baltimore from Ireland. And so that was the heritage on my mom's side. So I've been particularly interested in the spirituality of the Celtic tradition. My grandmother was very Irish Catholic, but I've in more recent years been more interested in the Celtic tradition before Christianity came to Ireland. So Thich Nhat Hanh always talks about how we are the continuation of our parents, that we are the continuation of our ancestors, and that to better understand ourselves, we want to understand our ancestral ways. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, "We know that genetically speaking, all our ancestors are still alive in each of our cells. They have not died, but not only do we carry their genes, but we also carry their thoughts and their beliefs, their experiences, and their aspirations within us. We carry their actions of body, speech, and mind into the future." And I feel this more true than ever since my mom passed and all that I've gone through in connecting with her, really between the veil, through the veil. And I always wondered why was my mom such a nature spirit? She was a survivalist. If I had to be stuck in the woods with anybody, I'd want to be with my mom. I mean, she was an amazing survivalist. She would take people on these edible weed walks, and it was strange because her mom, my grandmother and great grandmother, they lived in Baltimore their whole lives. Well, my grandmother came as a young teenager, but my mom just had this connection with nature. And from my youngest memories, she was always taking us out into nature. And by the time I was 8 years old, we got a lot of land in Pennsylvania. We moved out of the city, and thus began my love affair with nature. My mom got me a horse when I was 10. But I just always wondered, where did that come from? She was such an anomaly to her mother and grandmother. And I really feel it was her Celtic ancestry. The spirituality of the earliest Irish people were so deeply earth and nature based. There was a Celtic tradition, and there is, of healing practices using Celtic herbalism. And my mom, she created something called Nature's fingerprints, and she made tinctures. She would harvest, herbs, and she would make these tinctures, these healing tinctures. And she also collected flowers and made these beautiful cards. And she collected rocks and stones and crystals and made jewelry. She actually had a rock shop in Weed, California, which is perfect. She loved weeds and she loved rocks, and but I'm so grateful that she gave me that love of nature. So growing up, I heard all these stories of Ireland, and there was no place I wanted to visit more, right, than Ireland. And when I was 18, my dad said, "All right, we're gonna send you and your brother on a trip around the world," and we got to stop in Ireland for 5 days. So I have to tell you the story of what happened. We arrived in Dublin. We landed in Dublin, and we drove a car to a nearby little tiny shanty town, and we got settled in, and I told my brother, I'm going to go for a jog. I want to see Ireland. So I went for this jog for about a mile down this country road, and I came to a castle. I've never seen a castle. And I was so excited. I jogged up the driveway, right, of the castle. And I came around this last bend, and there were all these people out front having a lawn party. And they were all dressed up, right? And I'm in my jogging shorts. But this woman waves me to come over. And I introduce myself. I say, I'm from Florida, and I've never seen a castle before, and I just got here. And so she calls her groundskeeper, Peter, over and says, give her a tour of the castle. So all of a sudden, I'm in the middle of a fairy tale. I'm inside this castle, and Peter's showing me the room where Mick Jagger stays and the room where Eric Clapton stays when he visits. And I come to find out it's the Guinness family, right? It's the Guinness family of Ireland. And so finally, we end up in this big drawing room with a big grand piano. And so then I tell Peter, well, this is what I do. I'm a musician. I play piano. He says, well, play a song. So I sit down and start playing the piano, and the whole party comes inside. And then they're asking me to play another song, and Miss Guinness, right, is asking me play another song. I entertain them for 40 minutes or so. And I said, I actually have to go. My brother's going to be worried, and he's not going to believe this. He's not going to believe this happened. He's going to say I'm making it up, right? So the hostess invited me to come the next day for lunch and bring my brother. So we came the next day for lunch. And of course, I got back and I was so excited, and my brother was like, wow. And we had lunch and met some more of the Guinness family. And by the end of lunch, they invited us to stay in the castle. So we went back to the motel and we got our things, and we came and we moved into the Guinness castle for a few days. And it was truly a fairy tale. Of course, I played that piano quite a bit. You know, I earned my keep. But the very last, and they had the prize garden of Ireland. They had the most magical garden. I spent a lot of time in that garden. So by the last day we were there, it was Sunday, and they took us to church, right? And straight from church, we went to the pub, right? Where they have they had a piano, of course. And I entertained them, and I just absolutely fell in love with the Irish people. And I've never been back, but I want to go back. But that's my story of going to Ireland and discovering my heritage. And when I got back and told Big she just had tears in her eyes. She was just so moved. And more recently, when we've been going through Mom's things, I found the postcards I sent her of that experience. So precious, so precious. So for many people, this day, St. Patty's Day, it means, wearing green. Everybody's in green, or lots of you are in green. Green beer and shamrocks and leprechauns and three-leaf clovers, right? But St. Patrick, he led an interesting life, and he did have a big effect on Ireland. He was born in Britain, though. Patrick was born in Britain in the late 4th century. And at 15 years old, it said that he was captured by a band of up to no good Irishmen that took him to Ireland, and he was a slave for 6 years. And his job was tending sheep as a shepherd. But after 6 years, he managed to escape. And years later, he went back to Britain. He wrote a book called Confessions, where he described his time in slavery. Slavery back then was not illegal, right? So he described that, and he also wrote about how he was so miserable during that time that he almost gave up. But he started just praying intensely, fervently, like 100 prayers a day. And he would also pray at night when he couldn't sleep. And then he started having these lucid dreams. And he had this dream that there was a ship where he could escape 200 miles away. And then if he would, follow these instructions, he would escape. And he did. And he got back to Britain. And so then he became a priest and a bishop. And he had another dream to go back to Ireland, which was kind of risky, right? Because he could be captured again. And he actually was. But then that didn't last long. But he felt to go back and share his faith. And he basically brought Christianity to Ireland in the 5th century. A big part, as I study, I read his works. It's not an easy read, but what I felt in him, in his spirituality, what I felt the big appeal that he might have had to the Irish people back then is he was very vocal in his condemnation of slavery, because slavery was really a thing back there. And he also shared profound teachings on forgiveness. He forgave his captors. I think it said he even went and paid them off, and um, but he was more of a common person, so he related to the people. It's I read somewhere that he realized that the people already knew God through their Celtic spiritual tradition, but just in a different way. They were polytheistic, and of course they weren't aware of Jesus as the medium or a medium to reach the divine. So it seems that what happened, Christianity at that time was quite different than it is now, and it seemed like it merged with the Celtic tradition. Isn't it interesting? It's St. Patrick's Day today, and the spring equinox is in 2 days. Isn't that interesting? Isn't it interesting how the winter solstice is right around Christmas time? You really feel like the much more ancient pagan Celtic tradition was, a lot of things were borrowed from their tradition, and it's so rich in the focus on everything in existence having a cyclic nature, right? The winter solstice, the summer solstice, the spring and fall equinox. In my opinion, what Christianity could learn from Celtic spirituality and their ancient understanding is this direct continuity between the material world and the other world, or you could say the other worlds, the other realms, right? Because their understanding is that there is an unseen world, and it's beyond our five senses, right? That interpenetrates and affects our visible world. I have never felt that so much as I have since my mom has passed. I have really felt this. There are a lot of dimensions and realms, and our five senses are just showing us one, right? So they had an awareness of this. They believed the Celts believed in reincarnation of every individual soul. They felt that the earth itself had a soul, that she was a being, an ensouled being. And so I feel like where we are right now in our world with our climate crisis and kind of the way humanity's treated the earth in more recent years, we need to retrieve some of this ancient wisdom and tradition of revering nature and learning from nature, and realizing our very survival really depends on our relationship with nature. I feel like all teenagers should have to put their phone down for 2 hours a day and just be outside, right? Well, maybe adults too. Yeah, because there's so much to receive. I mean, when we were kids, we had to go out and play, right? We didn't have computers and cell phones and games, right? And I think it was healthier, really. I love Thich Nhat Hanh. I know you hear me quote him a lot, but he was such a nature-loving Buddhist. There are these mystics that are nature lovers. St. Francis, that's why I love that prayer. St. Francis was a mystic-loving mystic. Lao Tzu, right? The Tao Te Ching is full of wisdom from nature. So, but Thich Nhat Hanh would talk about how we inter-are with everything. We inter-are. Jean said that last Sunday. We are all interconnected, with each other, with all of nature. There's a continuity between our past and our present and our future as humanity. The Iroki have a teaching that if we heal in our life, we heal the past 7 generations and the future 7 generations. Yeah, that, we are our ancestors and descendants. They're a part of us. In that first month after mom passed, as I said, I really felt the veil was parted, and I was feeling like we did this deep healing work together of our ancestry. You know, she had some real wounds from her grandmother, from Big from my grandmother. And I felt Big Om's presence, and I felt my grandmother, my little mom was my mom's presence. And I really felt that we did this review. You have the life review. I was thinking about that word, review. Let's view this with new eyes, right? And there was just this love and forgiveness that was so present. And I felt like that was part of my job. I was really holding that space, bringing that. But that we were doing this review of my life with my mom's life with her mom. And, you know, all this forgiving was happening. All this forgiving was happening. John O'Donohue writes about forgiveness. He wrote, "May all that is unforgiven in you be released. May your fears yield their deepest tranquilities, and may all that is unlived in you blossom into a future graced with love." All that is unlived in you, what is that? What's unlived in us, in our hearts? There is this powerful work for us to do, to heal, you know, and we don't just heal for ourselves, we heal for our family in the past and the future. John O'Donohue said, "Forgiveness is one of the really difficult things in life." Anybody else feel that way? He said, "The logic of receiving hurt seems to run in the direction of never forgetting either the hurt or the hurter. But when you forgive, some deeper divine generosity takes over." Isn't that beautiful? Divine generosity. He says, when you can forgive, then you're free. When you cannot forgive, you are a prisoner of the hurt done to you. Yeah. John O'Donohue, I'm such a fan. He had a short life. He only lived to 52 years old. But he lives on in his words. You know, he's here with us this morning in his beautiful teachings. And he really taught about healing trauma. He had a lot to say about healing familial trauma and ancestral trauma. He wrote, "For everything under the sun, there is a time. This is a season of your awkward harvesting, when the pain takes you where you would rather not go. Now the act of seeing begins your work of mourning. And your memory is ready to show you everything, having waited all these years for you to return and know. Only you know where the casket of pain is interred. You will have to scrape through all the layers of covering, and according to your readiness, everything will open. Everything will open. May you be blessed with a wise and compassionate guide who can accompany you through the fear and through the grief until your heart has wept its way to your true self." I love that. You know, this reminds me of one of my very last memories of my great grandmother, Big It was one of the most powerful healing experiences of my life. I was, I think I was in my early 20s, and I had just gone through a really difficult breakup, and I was heartbroken, and I was having all this abandonment come up, and it wasn't commensurate really with the situation. It felt ancient. It felt like I was carrying it from a long time. And I had to work that evening. I was singing. I got off work somewhere around 12:30, and I was driving home, and I drove past where my great grandmother lived in the nursing home. And all the lights were out, of course, because it was late. And I just went to the next turn, and I pulled back around, and I pulled in the parking lot. I just wanted to be near Big On because she was like unconditional love for me. So I'm sitting in the parking lot, and I just go, I've got to see her. So I walk up to the front door, you know, and I can't believe the door is open. So I take off my shoes, and I'm carrying my shoes, and I tiptoe down the hallway of the nursing home, and I get to her room where she sleeps in the same room with 6 other women. And I walk up, and I get right beside her bed, and I go, Big On, Big On. And she wakes up, she goes, Kathy, is that you? And I said, Big I'm so sad. And then I just started crying. And she goes, come here. So I get in bed with her in her little single bed. And she puts her arms around me. And I just cry and cry and cry and cry until I fall asleep. And I woke up and it was daylight. And I'm in bed with Big and all of her roommates. But they're all asleep, right? And so I get up and I tiptoe out without being seen. And it was funny because, we never spoke about it. And I think she probably thought that was a dream, right? But it was so incredibly healing. It was such a precious memory of unconditional love. And I just feel like this is what we're so hungry for. We need to know there's unconditional love here in this world. And that's why we need to cultivate it and just give it to each other, right? John O'Donohue, he really writes about this kind of healing. He says, as your tears fall over that wounded place, may they wash away your hurt and free your heart. May your forgiveness still the hunger of the wound, so that for the first time you can walk away from that place reunited with your banished heart, now healed and free, and feel the clear, free air bless your new face. So we are a continuation body of our parents, of our ancestors, not only our blood ancestors, but our spiritual ancestors and our spiritual teachers. We are the continuation. And our Earth School assignment, I believe, is to heal the wounds of the past in this present moment. And we, can liberate ourselves. We can become free. It's part of becoming free, this healing work we're given. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, we're not limited to our physical body. Even when we're alive, we inter-are with our ancestors, descendants, and the whole cosmos. We do not have a separate self. We are interconnected with all life, and we and everything are always in transformation. Always in transformation. So I just want to close with this prayer, that we know, that we realize that we are the great possibility of our ancestry, and that we are the hope of the full blossoming of our lineage. And so, as John O'Donohue says, may we be excessively gentle with ourselves and with each other, And may all healing be ours. And may the beauty and may the wonder of nature be ours and fill us. It's so incredible right now. It's just blossoming out there. May the protection of the ancestors be ours, and may deep, abiding peace be ours and be with everyone. May it be so. Om Shanti. Thank you all. Thank you.